Well, let's go ahead and get started. And if we have anyone else joining us, they'll be able to join in. And again, like I mentioned before, we'll be recording this session for anyone who was unable to join us today live. So thank you again for connecting. My name is Sabrina. I'm the University Partnership Manager for Absolute Internship, and you're joining us today for our remote 2020 Internship Webinar Series. This is the third series part that we're offering. So we're excited to have you today and our speakers that are joining us at a very late time for them. So we really appreciate that. So just to get started, we will be speaking today about adapting to a multicultural work environment in a remote internship. And you can change your view on your screen of the speakers during this session. So you do have control of that during the session. But just to introduce them briefly, and then I will give them the floor so they can speak more about themselves and their company and the roles that they have in terms of remote internships. First, I would like to welcome Damon. Mackey is the president and CEO at Catalyst for MBAs based in Tokyo, Japan. So thank you so much for joining us today, and he'll briefly introduce himself in a minute. And also Eveliene, Witjes from Singapore. She's the Global Human Resources Manager at EventBank there. So I will let each one of you start off just introducing yourself, explaining a little bit about you know, who you are, what your company is, what you are dedicated to, and your roles that you have available for internships. So thank you.
Sure. Eveliene, did you want to go first?
If you prefer, I'm fine with both, but I can kickstart definitely. Thank you for Sabrina for the short introduction. Great to be here today and to talk a bit more on the multicultural work environment in a remote internship. To tell you a little bit more briefly in a nutshell, I have, like, over the past 12 years worked with different types of companies, really helped them on their HR transformations. Currently I'm based in Singapore, working for a SaaS company, which as of 2018 really had their goals set on a global expansion, whereas they started focusing first on APAC and thereafter on further expansion towards US, EMEA, and so forth. So we really went into a very fast expansion and a good one so far. And obviously at this point, I am responsible for leading the HR department, managing all of the teams, making sure the operations are going smooth and well between all the various countries, and so forth. Currently, we don't have an internship available as we speak, but we do get opportunities available in the upcoming weeks as part of our group that's currently our intern groups within the US. They are about to finish up over the upcoming weeks. So I'm really looking forward to further discuss and also see what we can do together.
Nice. Okay, our operation is a little bit smaller. So I have an organization here in Japan. And then also we have an office in the Philippines, but I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'm from Silicon Valley originally, right in the center, grew up in San Jose, California, graduated from California State University, Chico, a little late as I took a semester off to work in the beautiful tropical island of Saipan, and another semester I took off to work in Colorado, working with children in outdoor education. Both of those were kind of those jobs. I wonder why I never just stayed there. They were beautiful locations. Graduated with a Bachelor of Science, came to Japan. I did my MBA here, and I found that the alumni is one of the most important parts of the MBA. You know, learning from multicultural people, all these people from different companies and different areas of different companies, and then working together on teams to come up with business cases. I really liked that. that part of networking with many different types of people. So I wanted to just make like a tri-alumni, bring 3 schools together. Couldn't do it during the MBA because it was very busy. And then afterwards we created the MBA Summit, and we created the biggest MBA career forum in Japan. And then we still continue the MBA Summit now, have some exclusive seminars with the big 4 consulting companies like Deloitte and EY, and really love just being a catalyst for the candidates and the clients and our colleagues here at Catalyst for MBAs. The internship opportunities are 2. They go all year long. These are revolving internships that go throughout the whole year. Social media community manager, which is people doing a lot on our different social medias to share information on what the company is doing and get people engaged with us in a creative way. And then there's a sales and research, very different. So doing some research with the sales team and learning how to do some high-level sales. Yeah, so just those 2, but they're open all year. So that's quite useful to some people that don't do it during the traditional summertime, which many people are doing. So all year we have those usually 2 to 3 month internships.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Damon. So we're going to go ahead and go to some questions that we have for our presenters, and then the audience is also welcome to type any questions they have in the chat or wait until the end for open question and answer time. So whichever you prefer. So we just wanted to ask, first of all, I know you mentioned a little bit, but what countries does your company have offices in, and how are these locations strategic to your business? So I don't know, Eveliene, did you want to go first talking about which countries you guys are currently operating in?
Like I've mentioned, they've been really working hard on a global expansion. So we started, the company is originally started operations back in China, and from there, as of 2018, they really wanted to expand more global, starting with APAC. So currently within APAC, we are operational within Singapore, Hong Kong, Philippines, India, Indonesia, and Malaysia. Then upon the next step towards an expansion within the US, we have currently 1 team located in Virginia. And then if we look at towards EMEA, we've opened 2 offices in Africa, 1 in Kenya and 1 in Cape Town. And we work also with various contractors spread out over, for example, Europe. And we are currently also started to focus on looking into an expansion towards Latin America. We just started working on baby steps towards Brazil and Mexico. If you look at the company in terms of what we're doing, we're providing a SaaS, an all-in-one SaaS solution that can be really used by a lot of corporations, a lot of associations, as well as a lot of chambers of commerces. And as you can imagine, those are everywhere. Obviously, those are all linked to our strategic plan. But yeah, and obviously at the same time, the company is also continuously working on developing the product, building in more options, more solutions, which basically brings us in a really good niche. So there's a lot of opportunity, but we need to secure ourselves. Specifically, if you go into a new market, to make sure that all those new markets that you are keying for to eventually start operations in, to really ensure that those operations are being successful. So we really try to do it on a most secure step-by-step base.
Thanks, Eveliene. Can you explain just a little bit more in detail what your company does, just in case people aren't too familiar?
Yeah, so an all-in-one SaaS, it's completely software related. So it's a software that a lot of corporations can use. The original plan ID came for really the support on event management, as it basically says, EventBank, but now currently it's not only about event management anymore. It's really that we're supporting a lot of organizations via our software to support them in their day-to-day operations. So we've built up a lot of extra modules on top of that in that same solution, in which we can provide marketing solutions, a specific software for chambers of commerce, associations. We can help them with their website development. There's a financial module in the software as well. You can integrate a complete database that's currently synced also with Salesforce. So yeah, there are a lot of different types of options within the software. It's really an all-in-one, and we continue to build on supporting our customers and potential future customers.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I think, see if Damon, I think he had to step away for a second, but we'll be asking this question coming up. So Damon, sorry, I think you had to step away for a second, no worries. Where you mentioned just briefly where your company is located and working. Can you talk just a little bit more about that and how it's strategic to the business that you're doing in Tokyo?
Sure. Okay, so in Tokyo, we're very strategically located right in Ginza, so it's very central. And something that's unique about Japan, we have the train lines, and there's a very main train line called the Yamanote Loop, right in the center of Tokyo, or going all around Tokyo. It's less than 2 hours to ride the whole thing. But the headquarters of 80% of the entire country's GDP are inside of that Yamanote Loop. So for business, it's very unique. You know, you can just go by train to any place you want to visit for the whole country. In the US, where I'm from, it's very different. You'd have to make a lot of airplane flights or Zoom meetings. So we're located and we serve clients in Tokyo. And then we have the office in the Philippines, which we have such amazing talent that we hire there. I really love the culture, really passionate about learning more about the culture there. And then so those people are working, they're very connected to our Tokyo office, and then they're working with our clients and candidates that are in Tokyo through phone, through internet calls like this. Did you want me to explain more about what our business does as well?
Yes, sure. Yeah, if you want to explain just a little bit more about what you guys are doing, that would be great.
Okay, good. Maybe that helps to understand. So the events we had at the very beginning was strictly an events company. And then we had the MBA Career Forum, so like a job fair. Many companies are coming there. Nissan asked us first, how come we can't hire from you directly? And then so we started to, the simple way to put it would be that it's very similar to a recruitment company, but it's event-based. So we'll have an event at the company's headquarters, and then the CEO will speak, or the partner will speak. People want to go, very high level people will want to go to hear the president or CEO, and then we can introduce those people for business. That's super valuable to the company. So then the company will pay us for those events. So organizing those events and introducing those people to those companies, it's really worthwhile. I'm really happy to do it because you can make a really big change in somebody's life that affects every other area of their life, you know, in their career. That's it.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and the next question is, I just wanted to ask you guys, how did you both adapt personally to working in your current location? Because you're not from Japan originally, you're not from Singapore originally. So how have you been able to adapt? And then also working with internationally remote offices that you have and with the different cultures. So I was curious of how you personally, both of you have adapted to your current situations.
That's a very, very good question, and very, very important, definitely. So for me, it was, as you can imagine, coming from Europe towards Asia. It's a great opportunity, first of all, but it's completely different way of work, different culture, different history, and so forth. And for me, obviously, being in HR, it was really crucial to understand the laws and legislations here and around. So those are the things, like, for example, I've been really deeping into taking courses, legal courses, start working on my network expansion, but also really observing people, talking with people that are working here for a longer time, before really stepping into the business myself. So that helped me really a lot. And obviously, if you are stepping into a company, either if it's for a position or for an internship, if you work on a day-to-day basis with so many different cultures and backgrounds, you really have to be open to get to know them, to understand their way of work, to anticipate, to adapt, but also to work together towards what's needed operational. So I'm definitely, I think you can definitely learn a lot from wherever someone is coming from. As well as obviously adaptation. And for some people that can take maybe a little bit longer. But yeah, I mean, it's really, if you're really open and keen to explore and to go more international. I think that depending also obviously which role or internship you want to go into, be open and willing to really deep dive in there and really learn from it, learn and adapt, and also be open to put your ideas on the table yourself.
And Eveliene, was there something specific that was really challenging for you to adapt to in Singapore, of working in Singapore?
I think not too much, to be honest. But I mean, and that, I think that's also the same, like in terms of, you know, the type of company you work for, or the product you're trying to sell. Here in Singapore, for example, it's really important to build up relations with your clients, with people in general, and it takes longer before people are actually going to trust you. Both ways, so business way, business perspective, and personal way. So it's for example not common if you are with a company in the first month that you're gonna join colleagues just like that for lunch. It takes a little bit time to build that relationship together. But those are, you know, those are things that to adapt to and to understand as well. It's a complete different culture. They're very hardworking, very dedicated, great people. But yeah, everyone has their own approach. Like some countries, they're general more open towards, for example, expats, or vice versa, two-direction way. But obviously you cannot expect that in other countries. So, but it was not per se difficult. It is just really about observing, understanding, adapting, and appreciating as well. Have respect for the country, for the history, and the situation you're in, and learn from it as well.
Okay, thank you, Damon. How have you adapted to your situation working in Japan?
Japan has been, it's like night and day. So coming from US culture, I think a basic part of the culture is very independent thinking. And then Japan, basic part of the culture is very group thinking. So in a business meeting, the group thinking would be everybody's concerned about consensus. So does everyone agree? Does anybody find a problem with this? Any one person that finds a problem, we investigate that until we know for sure it's not a problem. And so it would take a very long time. The decision-making process would take forever, months. And then in the US, you know, it would be more individual. So I just want to speak my idea and sell everybody on my idea. And other people try to do the same, and then we would try to move forward quickly. So it's very different in the business perspective. I don't even know about personal side, so many differences living in Japan. But there's lots of really good things about the country. You know, the group thinking is part of the reason Japan's such a safe country to live in. People very respectful of each other, etc. So that's really beautiful. And the business culture, I think it's similar to what Eveliene said, that it takes longer to earn people's trust, but once you have it, you really have it, and then people can move forward. Once you have it, then people can move forward very quickly with you on many different things. So that's nice part of working and living in Japan. Adapting to the location.
Yeah, and I was
Oh, go ahead.
I was curious, David. No, sorry to interrupt. I was just gonna ask, like, so, you know, for you and for Eveliene to adapt to Japan or to Singapore, you know, you've had a much more immersive experience of living there and being on the streets. And what about, you know, then taking it to another level and trying to adapt to your teams that are remote? So, you know, if you're working with someone in the Philippines, or you're working with someone in Malaysia or China, and you're not physically there, so you're adapting to the way it is in Japan or the way it is in Singapore, but now you have another layer because you have another team that's a different culture. How have you guys been adapting to these teams as well? So you've already adapted to one, and now you're adapting to more.
Yeah, I think the maybe it's quite useful to live in another country, because you have to adapt. You had better learn to adapt to that culture a little bit and be respectful of the culture. So then maybe it helps you to start to work with other countries. I still think it can be difficult learning to customize to other cultures, but some of the things you can do is just work with the people there and try to make a conscious effort to be careful about how other people communicate in different cultures. Maybe they're not going to be quick to put forth an idea, or maybe they're not going to want to challenge another idea. So you have to communicate in another way. So asking people about that and letting them know that you're very open, it helps at least a little. It doesn't mean someone from another culture can immediately speak out if they're not used to that, but making it open for that. And then I think learning about cultures, we can try to learn and read books about the culture that we're working in. One of the favorite books I have is Kiss, Bow, and Shake Hands. It's old, a huge book, and then it has all cognitive thinking of different countries and breaks down all these areas. So it's really nice to read on the country before you go there. That's it from me.
Yes, I think I definitely agree with that also. For me, like I've mentioned before, it really helped. Like I'm really also about observing and talking with a lot of people, building up your network. But you know, if you're really going into a new company or for an internship or position, it's really on a day-to-day basis that you really have to obviously show respect. Be careful that you're not, you know, start standing on other people's feet directly. But at the same time, be also very clear on your vision in a respectful way, of course. What I've done, for example, was quite a big difference between not per se Singapore, but let's say the culture and way of working with my colleagues in China, with their great colleagues. It's a really diverse team, foreigners, a combination of foreigners and a huge local team as well. We're based in three different locations within China. But obviously you have to build up respect. You have to, it takes a little bit to build up trust as well. But what I've been doing, like I've really been looking, for example, at operations and working towards the same goal, whatever that is on the operational perspective or a company goal, strategic goal. And then looking with other departments and teams within how they've been working on certain things, and really going under that, like why they've been doing it that way, and how we can improve, for example. So it's really like a bit like on a step-by-step baby steps basis. But it helped because if you're really showing the other side as well, like, you know, you're all working towards a goal or an improvement, and you're doing that together with all due respect, and you're trying to find the best solution. So yeah, that's a little bit from my end, but obviously adapting as well, and being very open, like Damon mentioned as well, being very open and observing also.
Okay, great. Thank you. And kind of shifting gears a little bit from your personal experiences, how would you adapt employee or intern onboarding based on their location or culture? So I don't know if you have the same type of onboarding for everyone, no matter where they're from, or you do include different topics or trainings depending on the culture or background of the employee or intern.
Well, in our case, within our company, we've obviously linked to the global expansion. We really needed to ensure that the operations would support a global expansion. So that definitely means for an onboarding or training that all of our processes need to be sync. And luckily, if we look at the current situation right now, we didn't really have to make a lot of adjustments to go more digital, because as you can imagine, if you have so many teams and based in so many different countries, you need to ensure that your teams and departments are working well together and are operational on a day-to-day basis despite the time zone they're in. So we've made it already like completely, well, let's say almost online based, in which they are having one-on-one interactions within the team. They would normally meet in the office, but on top of that, also one-on-one meetings or trainings with our teams abroad. And that's one of our key factors that we really want to have for all of our trainings, as well as for our interns, that they get that international experience.
Thank you. Thank you. Damon, what would you say about your onboarding process?
I think it's a little bit similar for those from different cultures. What we do try to do is make the job description for the internship very detailed, and then make sure that people understand that really well. And then, so we're working with people from different countries. We've had a lot of different countries in the past as internships, some from Japan, some from Southeast Asia, and a lot from Europe. And then Canada, and one or two from the US. But with the different cultures, I think the important thing is to make sure they understand the job description at the beginning, a very well detailed job description. And then we go immediately into, want you to understand you have to be proactive. So we're just going to give you framework and allow you to deliver. And then we're going to be here for your help. So then that does make it difficult for different cultures, because they're going to communicate different. But the main thing is to make sure they understand they need to be proactive. They're going to deal with some ambiguity and bring their own solutions, and that we're going to be open to talk to them so that they can, you know, work with us on a daily basis, and we can give them feedback. And then that way I try to, and of course we try to make it a place where any culture can fit, but so that they understand what they need to do, they can communicate to us. And that's the part that's going to be very different per culture as they start to work with us, and we need to communicate so they can understand what they need to do and get the most out of the internship.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. And we kind of answered that before, if it'd be the same process for an intern, as you were saying, Damon, making sure that it's a very clear description, explanation of what's expected, especially from a student, as well as an employee. I didn't know if you had anything to add, Eveliene, or it was kind of similar to that as well when you're working with interns.
For us, it's quite similar. Obviously, we need to ensure that there's a detailed a job description, and there will be like day-to-day follow-ups within the team, whether if it's a remote internship or an in-person internship. But other than that, we've really synced our processes. So basically, all of our interns, wherever they're located, or whatever their background or culture is, they should be able to join our onboarding and our internship.
Oh, great, great, thank you. And do you guys have any examples or how you collaborate or work differently depending on a local culture? So, you know, maybe how you work differently with one of your offices compared to how you would work with your home office. I didn't know if you had any examples of that you could share.
I'm just thinking now about this. To be honest, obviously, like all the points that we've talked a little bit about before, about adaptation and respect and so on. I don't per se have like different ways of working because of different cultures that I'm working with, because it's for me already so integrated, and we've worked on global synchronization of our operations and of our processes. Which basically also ensures that everyone is able to work well together on a day-to-day basis, wherever they are located. Obviously, within different types of cultures and countries, there are always different ways of work, like Damon and I mentioned before. You know, if you go in to either set up a meeting, or you're trying to pitch something, or if we look, for example, at EventBank, at our sales teams, like there's never one formula that fits to all countries. For example, to run a good sales, or to do a good collaboration, and for example between Singapore and other countries. For example, like Damon mentioned, in the US, but also within Europe, we're quite direct with our work or operations, and in some cultures that might be a bit too much, so you need to take a step back, and that's basically only possible by really going into working with those different types of culture on a day-to-day basis, and understanding where they're coming from, and seeing and looking towards a solution together. So the example that I gave to you earlier, for example, with China, with our team in China, like I've been really looking into looking into their operations, and then verifying why they do the things they do, and how we can improve those together, obviously with the same goal for the company and on the further strategic developments. But it doesn't mean that that's going to impact my completely way of working. It's just like an extra layer, I would say, where you're paying attention to if you are working or collaborating between different countries and different cultures.
Okay, thank you. Damon, did you have anything you wanted to share in terms of working with teams in different locations and cultures?
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay? My laptop just told me I have a weak internet connection. Is my voice coming through?
I can hear you now. Yeah, I can hear you. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, something to tie together like the last two questions. How do you collaborate or work differently depending on the local culture? And would it be the same process for a remote intern? So a little bit different than the last question, but maybe a little bit about how the way we work is mixed. So we have the Philippines and we have Japan. but the offices, we have a big screen. We have standing desks, and then at the end of our standing desk is a big screen. It's exactly the same in the Philippines, so it's on purpose to make it look like one huge long desk that everybody's standing at. And then so people can look at each other in real time, and people can talk to each other in real time. And also somebody asked a question about the softwares or things people use to stay connected, to make social connection easier. So we use Slack. I don't know how many people are familiar with that, but we use Slack to instant message each other throughout the day, and have the paid version so we can do video. So anytime you want, you can click and do video like this. Plus people are up on the wall, and there's a, it's kind of like an intercom. You can reach out on your desk and tap it and just speak to the person in the Philippines, or they can speak to you at any time. So we can see each other while we work, and is very open. And Eveliene said the same thing too, that they're like, that because they're in so many different cultures, they already have a set way to communicate with each other throughout the day. So I think both of our companies have that in common, that for the remote intern, it's quite similar to working in the office, because you can be connected and looking at each other just like we're all looking at each other and talking to each other now.
Great. Yeah. And someone else had another question, Damon, that in terms of document sharing, do you guys use Google Suites, or what sort of platforms do you normally use in your companies?
I love Google Suites. It works. It's super simple. Everybody can share it. I have no wish to use anything else. It's so easy to use. I love it. So we use it for a lot in our company, at least the documents and the spreadsheets.
Is it the same
How
for
about
you,
you, Eveliene?
Evelyn, or?
Yeah, so actually we're working, I'm very familiar with Slack, but we're not working with Slack, we're working with Quip, because these days there's so many tools that you can use for project management and sharing and building up of training files and more. So we're working a lot with Quip, and on the day-to-day communications tools, we're working with Teams, which is a Microsoft Teams, which you can do calls, video calls, set up groups, group meetings, and chats, which is very, very easy to use. And additionally, we have also Google Drive to share our let's say more confidential files if we need to.
Okay, great. And what advantage would you guys see of having a remote intern from another country or culture for your company? So I know both of you host interns from all over the world. So you obviously see there is some advantage to having them. So I'm just curious as to what advantage do you guys find in your work of having these international students be a part of your team?
I think, like, despite where someone comes from in terms of country or culture, they always bring new skills and knowledge on the table. So it's definitely an advantage to have to work with remote interns that are coming from different types of countries. It's always interesting to also see how they adapting on their onboarding or training. And also in addition to that, what ideas or solutions are they coming with throughout their internship, or certain assessments they need to work with. We always also at the end of each internship ensure that we compare, we evaluate, we always want proper feedback, just also for us to learn from what we can further improve. But also to compare on a later note and to see, for example, differences between countries and cultures.
And I think for us, I guess, adversity is important in teams. So the different countries, it's really nice to, if we don't do that, then we're going to limit the amount of creative thought that we have in the company, and we're going to miss out on some solutions, or we'll at least miss out on the most optimal solution, or as close as we can get to it. So definitely. I think in the past, it's really been good to see different ways of problem solving, maybe different ways of problem solving from different types of people. And even people from the same country can have different ways, but I think there's just a huge advantage to have that and learn something from every person that comes into the company. But I think there's a lot to learn from having people from different countries, and maybe also for our employees in the Philippines, everybody's from the Philippines. In Tokyo, it's kind of mixed, the people we have, countries that people are from. But that's good to see how people can fit, how another person from yet another country can fit into the team. I think that's good for the team to have.
Okay.
Yes, definitely. And I think also if you look at the diversity between teams, whether they are in the same country or not, for them to not just work together but also learn from each other, it's really definitely an advantage.
Okay, and then we had a question here from one of our attendees that she wanted to know what you think the role of the mentor or supervisor should be in order to best support an intern in a remote internship. So I don't know, how would you guys describe the role that a supervisor should be taking with a remote intern?
I don't think it should be that different, but something Eveliene said that for her company, they're checking in on a daily basis, and that's really good. And I do think the only difference is you need to check in with the intern if they're remote more often, because in the office, they can ask you a question whenever they want, anybody a question whenever they want. And sometimes it's maybe they're less likely to send a text to somebody, etc., to ask. So I think more checking, but the role should be the same, I think. What do you think, Eveliene?
Yeah, not much of a change. I think like this specifically now what we've seen during the current outbreak is that there's been a strong increase on daily daily communication between the teams, and definitely for an internship remotely, it's really important to not just have them on connecting with the teams on a daily basis, but definitely also the supervisor or mentor that they're having throughout the week to support them and to see where they're working on and to hold track on that. Which would be probably more visible if you have them in the office because it's just easier to connect and maybe a little bit faster. But that's just like a little bit like a slight difference. And on the other hand, it's maybe also a bit personal. Like some people, they are maybe a bit shy to, for example, ask in person and rather do it by a tool. So I don't see a huge difference here. Communication, following ups between supervisor, mentor, and within the teams is definitely key.
Great, thank you. And just a few more questions here, and then we'll let our audience have any other questions they want to ask you guys. What skills would you say that a remote intern needs to have in order to successfully adapt to a multicultural work environment? So this could be a concern that students have, you know, that they've never left their home country before. And maybe they don't have a lot of contact with people from different cultures or from the culture, you know, where your host company is located. And, you know, so that's a very intimidating thought to be working with people in Japan or people in Singapore or the Philippines. So what type of skills do you think that the intern should have in order to be successful in this sort of unique internship experience?
Well, I think like one of the key things, like for example, if I'm looking at this question and I'm also looking at the current millennials and obviously the generations that are going to follow and our current way of working versus future ones. As well as looking back at, for example, how our parents used to work for an employer and so forth. I mean, there's already a huge difference within the current generation, how we're working, how long we're working generally for an employer. The same for internships, and despite the fact if we're in a current pandemic or not. I think key is one of the key things, definitely being able to multitask, being able to adapt very fast. It's definitely obviously a little bit depending on the type of company you're gonna do an internship with. I would give the advice to really be well informed what type of company it is. Obviously a good job description or understanding of how the internship would look like, having a direct point of contact in place that you can go to on a daily basis, which can also support you on that point of adaptation within a new environment. Yeah, I think there are quite a few other things for sure, but definitely like internships, they will never the same for our current work environment and jobs. They're constantly undergoing changes, so adaptation, multitasking. Those are, for example, two key things that you really need to have or need to be able to work on. Being very open as well to observe. And to really anticipate in different types of scenarios or situation you can get into. Ability to dare to ask as well, to come up if you have questions, or if you have concerns, or if you have ideas even. But I think that's a little bit what I think the direction it's going to go to. It's going to go faster and faster and faster in terms of expectations on the work floor, expectations of millennials at the same time, because they want to develop themselves very fast. They want to learn, they want to grow very fast. So aligned with that together, you need to have some of these key skills that I just mentioned, and also obviously willing to invest in yourself to be able to grow or to develop yourself in the direction or the path that you want to go to.
I think for skills they can have to be successful, maybe patience and observance. You know, to be patient, to try, you know, because the cultural difference can be so hard to see and understand. It can be frustrating at first. So be ready for that, and then just have patience to sit back and try to understand it. Same thing you should do in any type of relationship scenario, is try to put yourself in the other person's shoes. So try as much as you can to understand someone else's culture, which is impossible, because you're going to be trying to understand their culture through your culture, through the mind in your cultures. But you can get as close as you can get. So I think that's important. Just observe and be patient, to try to understand as much as you can, and just be open with people. So you can ask them, is my style of delivering working here? And then they can give you feedback if you ask. That's important. Check in with people and see how you're delivering, if there's anything you can do to deliver better. And usually people will let you know, and then just try to be observant, I think, is important.
Yeah, I agree, Damon. Like, definitely asking questions to people allows them a space, right, to give you feedback that maybe they wouldn't have given if you didn't ask.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and I think like in addition to what Damon mentioned, for example, I think making sure that an intern is feeling comfortable as well. As you can imagine, if you step into such a new environment, there needs to be a certain level of comfortability for them in order to do well, or to have a good internship.
Yeah.
Thinking, we did have a question here. I didn't know if you want to answer now. How many interns do you normally host at the same time?
I think, yeah, sorry, for EventBank, it's really obviously a bit depending. Right now, we are having roughly around at least 7 or 8 interns working. On other points through the year, moments through the year, we might have a bit less, but as in terms of perspective, it looks that we're roughly in an average around 7 or 8 that we currently need or have an opportunity for to support on ongoing projects.
And for us, I think at the same time, it's usually in the Tokyo office, but we've had people go to the Philippines office as well. But usually in the Tokyo office, we'll have 2 and have scheduled 3. That was just a time of overlap. Usually people are saying 2 or 3 months. And then there's sometimes a little bit of overlap between a couple, but it's usually 1, and then there can be 2, and the most as we've had is 3.
Okay. Okay, great. And just a couple more questions before we go to question and answer session. How would you say that universities could better prepare students to take on an international remote internship experience?
I would say really focus for university, really focus on what type of companies or areas you want your students to have the internships with, and work on a collaboration first of all, or through an agency or placing agent directly, and then really align on the expectation side. What are the students currently working on in terms of their semesters? Are there additional assessments? Really have that conversation up front to ensure that the placement of a student is going to be a good fit, and it's going to be successful for both parties. Besides like some of the skills that we've just talked about, I think that's a good point to pay attention to even more now, because internships, I think they're quite changing. Like it's in some organization, an internship is not particularly focusing, for example, on one department, but more departments together, and then you have a completely different job description or scope of work than versus a more traditional internship, and that aligns again with expectations.
And I think from my side, I think since universities do specialize in education, maybe since universities specialize in education, maybe educating them for the work cultures that they're about to go to. If that's possible for them to do, if it can be part of the internship program, to educate people about the work culture is really important. And then I really want people to have a good learning experience as an intern in our company, but also important to remember, it's not just a learning experience, you're also there to deliver value as well. So that's an important part of it. Understand the work culture so that you can deliver well when you're in your internship. So anything people can do to, universities can do to help people understand a foreign culture and the foreign work culture can be huge in how successful they are in their internship abroad.
Mm-hmm. So maybe having some sort of requirement for students to pass in terms of the working culture that they'll be working with on their end before students start.
Yeah, I think that would be great. If they know which country they're going to go to, what would be an excellent thing for them to study before they go.
Great, great, thank you. And for the last question here, what do you guys think of in terms of remote working, the future of it, internships in your industry? I know you guys were working remotely before COVID, so you might have a different perspective on what might be happening long term. Just to hear your thoughts in your specific industries.
Well, I think like obviously despite the pandemic, remote working and let's say new ways of working, as well as for internships, not depending on, I don't think it really depends on the per se on types of industries. But I definitely do see a trend here that we're definitely going more towards we're stepping more aside from the traditional way of working, meaning everyone is in the office, working 9 to 5, and that's a standard. I think we're definitely going more towards being able to work for an employer from wherever you are located, focusing on developing on more maybe shift work schedules as well, flex working. I definitely see that happening more and more, but also employers that have to be a bit more flexible towards employees in terms of situations that the employees can have to deal with, and they need to adapt their working schedule from time to time. And for internships, like Damon mentioned, and we shortly talked about it, that it also applies to that. It's not going to be, definitely not going to be a traditional internship anymore. It's definitely going to be more diverse, more international, might be also in a quite a more faster paced, which will give people the ability to learn more, which is obviously also a bit aligned with what millennials are aiming for. So I definitely don't see it as a quick fix, but just a first step towards our new ways of working with teams between different countries, different cultures, and integrate that remote working, or let's say flex working, from wherever you are based or wherever you have to be.
So I think it's totally agree with her that it's here to stay. Easy way to answer that, like not just for an internship, but for working, right? Remote working works for two very important reasons. If you could be wealthy, money's not the most important thing, but it's not bad to have more wealth, so you can get things, you can live however you want to live. If you could get more pay or be more wealthy without having to ask your boss for a raise and doing the same exact work, everybody says yes, right? And then you can do that. You can move to a country that has a lower cost of living and keep your same pay, and people can live very extravagant lifestyles. So I think people definitely want to have that. And also for companies, like coming from Silicon Valley, like all these huge giants are there, all fishing for talent in the same pond and super competitive. So then you can get people from anywhere. You want an IT person, you can go to some country that's famous for having IT people, etc. So I think it's definitely long-term for people to be working remotely. And people have to make some adjustments. Some companies, some industries, you need to be there. Even if it's sales on the phone, you can do from anywhere. You can bring your laptop, but you need to be there your first year or 6 months to learn from people in the room, things they say and do. I think it's super helpful. And then a company could make it so people could move all over the place. I think work from a swimming pool.
Yeah. Well, from business perspective, like obviously, like if you said, like also, if you really want to get your business off the ground, or you're stepping into a new market, what we've seen, for example, you really need to be present in certain countries to show your face, which maybe takes sometimes a bit longer than a year, but aligned with that, definitely, that's a key point as well.
Yeah, so once you gain that trust, then you can transition to the pool. Right,
for example.
Yeah, that's right. But people can move back and forth too. Like that's possible as well, right? Like I don't know how the timeline would work, but you could go someplace for a couple months and come back and meet a lot of clients and move back. Or I don't know, maybe it could be a month and a month, but it's interesting. Some people are doing it already, and it sounds amazing that they're just going to any Airbnb where they have Wi-Fi and working their job.
Yeah, that's
must
exciting.
Be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting. Well, thank you. Those are my questions. So I just wanted to open up if anyone else had any other questions for our speakers today that you wanted to ask. You can either write them in the chat, or you should be able to unmute yourself and you can ask a question live to our host here. So please feel free to ask any questions you would at this time. Yeah, okay. So they were asking about the onboardings process for interns. We were speaking about that a little bit. I got a question. So how do you onboard a student? Do they have videos that they watch? Do you have a manual that you send? Is there like an online orientation platform, or what does it look like for your companies?
Yeah, so to give you like a quick recap on that. So what we do, we have everything digital. So we have all of the software and tools they need to work with together. We basically build a brochure and an onboarding file for them, which includes all the tools and software that they need to work with, background information about the company. We recently launched our own so-called EventBank Academy, which is applicable for everyone to learn more about not just about our software, but the industry that we're in as well, and our tools or the software and the modules that we're providing, which you can finish off with an exam. So these, for example, these are a few key things that interns are going to go through as well. And then on a day-to-day basis, we have our, like I've mentioned, we're working a lot with Quip and Teams to hold an eye on their interns plans, onboarding plans for our interns, and to ensure that the outline that they're having in there, like tasks to work on a weekly and a monthly basis, besides their day-to-day, that those are going well. So that's basically all completely digitalized and ready to start looking at and then working with.
So you get a link and you have the whole page. It's very detailed. The social media manual has all the passwords you need in it. It has all how to make videos, everything. And then, so for the social media internship, where you're the community manager for social media, that's a title. There's a lot of information in there. And then we have a 1-week onboarding where you go through how to use everything. But you have this very detailed social media manual at your disposal all the time. It has stuff all the way detailed down to the company colors, so you can pick them for whatever you're doing and get the exact color, etc. Onboarding is pretty detailed. It's a week long. I think it's a lot. For the sales and research one, people are working with a different salesperson to understand the sales process, and then they're doing some research as well. So the manual is totally different. Onboarding process is similar. It's 1 week.
Okay, great, thank you. And someone asked, how do you recruit your interns? So do you work mainly with universities? You work with people like Absolute Internship? How else do you get your interns?
We work with Absolute Internship exclusively because they're the best.
Oh.
We have a couple other companies that are maybe similar, but work with Absolute Internship, and then try to get connection to schools. Every once in a while, somebody will apply directly, but it's super rare for us. What about you guys, Eveliene?
So in our case, like I'm currently exploring like a lot of, quite a lot of requests from either direct universities or other agencies that are looking to place the interns. So it's quite a mix of both, and in some cases we also receive some interns from within the network of our CEO, schools that he's been on within the past, or that he had good connections with. So it's quite a mix, and to be really frank, we're really happy we just started working with Absolute Internship. So far it's going great, so we expect a lot more other new interns to join the company as well.
Thank you. Last question here, I think we have, and then we'll wrap up. Someone asked, how would you recommend to make a connection with a virtual intern more personal?
Well, that's good.
Yeah, like I think like we slightly already talked about it. It's crucial to build up that trust and to build up the trust and a direct line with between the supervisor and our mentor from the beginning. Ensure that someone feels really comfortable and is able to go through a good internship. I think it's great we have all the technology in place to be able to do that. Let's say despite the in-person experience within an office, and also include them in day-to-day operations, not just on the things that they're focusing on for their internship or specific departments, but also integrate them with other team members in other countries. Really make them part on the global experience, or like, let's say a new experience for them also to learn as much as possible and to get as much possible out of this out of their internship.
Yeah, I think that building up trust is really important thing, and to be done right away. So I definitely agree with what Eveliene said. And then just inclusiveness, Eveliene also said, we try to get our guys invited to everything. So there will be a meeting that maybe it could be a sales meeting, and this is not in the sales internship, but you can still be there because everybody's going to be in the meeting. They can still learn from that meeting, and even if they don't give creative idea inside the meeting, it might be very structured, they still get to be there and see how the meetings run, and maybe most importantly, feel part of the team. So all of those things, and I think definitely has to be something outside of work. So we'll do like team building exercise, it's only once a month. And now that everybody's working at home, it's kind of hard to work at home. So we'll do like a breakout session where people can just talk once a week for 30 minutes. But I think that outside thing helps people to get close, and then just make sure we're including people in everything, like Eveliene said.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for your time, and again for staying up late to speak with us. We really appreciate it. And as I mentioned, we'll be sharing a recording of the session with you all and anyone who is unable to attend. And we'll also be happy to share the contact information for Damon and also Eveliene if anyone has any other questions or just wanted to reach out after the session. So thank you guys so much again for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, good to talk with you. Good questions, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.